It's been a long time now, and George's bar is still closed. No one knows when it'll open its doors once again. Meanwhile, George has been doing pretty much nothing these days, except for watching TV, surfing the web, and spending time on social media. George used to have a thriving bar business. It was his dream to open up a bar where people can relax and enjoy time with their loved ones, and he was happy that his dream had become a reality. Located in the outskirts of the city, his bar was recognized as a hidden gem, and George would constantly think of ways to satisfy his customers. There were nice forest trails not far away from the bar, and people would often enjoy them before or after visiting his bar. Everyone loved being close to nature, including George himself. George also had a knack for organizing various events at the bar to keep things alive and fresh. George's business was doing well, and he was on a roll. But now, things have changed. What started the previous year was like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It was the year 2020, and the COVID-19 pandemic had reached most parts of the world. Like many people around the globe, George's life was shaken. He never imagined that a global pandemic would ever happen in this lifetime. Because a lockdown was imposed to prevent the spread of the virus, George's business wasn't allowed to operate at that time, so he had no choice but to postpone operations. All that was happening made George feel helpless. George didn't know what would happen to his business, and he was unsure how he could support his employees during this time. He tried to keep all of his staff, but if the government stopped their support, then he would have to let many of them go. Meanwhile, he stayed at home and would only go out to buy groceries and other essentials once a week. He couldn't meet up with his family and friends, so he would stay in touch with them over the phone, or he would have video calls with his closest friends. After a couple of months of lockdown, the government now allowed the operation of bars at limited capacity. It was a relief for George that they could continue with their operations at the bar. However, he had many doubts as to how they were going to operate. George realized how the pandemic had really taken a toll on his business. They would only have a few customers, given the limited outdoor seating that they had. George was happy that he was able to operate the bar, but with a limited capacity, he was losing money even when his bar was open. As a responsible businessman, he had been saving money when the business was booming, but he knew that money wouldn't last forever. Moreover, he was facing a dilemma because some of his suppliers had gone out of business. He had been working with these suppliers from the start, and he treasured the partnerships that they had formed through the years. And it saddened him that they had to close down their businesses. He didn't know where to find new suppliers, especially during this time. It was like going back to square one. He thought of just scrapping items from the menu and retaining what was left. He didn't know what to do anymore. Every day as he was reading the news or watching TV, he would hear about the COVID-19 infections and deaths. He was feeling hopeless. Is it time to close down the business that I've loved all these years? He thought. At the same time, he was also struggling with his personal life. Now, more than ever, he realized how he hadn't made much effort to reconnect with his estranged son in the recent past. He remembered the time when his family was happy together. However, his past mistakes have turned it all around. He remembered that life-changing evening when he argued with his wife. Now, he and his son have lost touch, and this breaks George's heart. He wanted so much to be there for him, especially during these uncertain times. Having realized this, he had been trying to contact his son for the past few weeks, but to no avail. George's world was shrinking day by day, and he was starting to lose hope. One evening, George got the notification reminder on his phone about an online meditation session. He couldn't remember when and why he registered for it, but he concluded that it was to clear his mind from overwhelming thoughts. The session was starting in 30 minutes, so he grabbed a quick snack and got ready for it. The session started with a breathing exercise. George closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and exhaled. It felt great. After a few minutes of breathing, they went into guided meditation taught by the instructor. And at the end of the session, she shared the concept called circle of influence. She said that all things in life fall in one of the two circles, circle of influence or circle of concern. Your circle of influence represents things in your life that you can change or influence, such as where you live, what you learn, your attitude, and so on. On the other hand, your circle of concern represents things that you have no control over, such as traffic, the news, past mistakes, others' behaviors, and the economy. As with coronavirus, people might feel restricted and limited by their actions, but this is only because people are focusing on things in their circle of concern. Because we can't change the pandemic, we have to adapt to the changing environment. The session was over, but it made George think about many things. It was late in the evening, but he went for a walk. And the more he was thinking about the concept, the more he realized that he had been focusing on the wrong things. He was thinking only about the restrictions and limits, but he never explored the idea of opportunities. It's time to change the way I look at things, George thought to himself. The following day after waking up, George made a plan of how he wanted to move forward with his life, focusing on his circle of influence. Instead of dwelling on what he can't control, he decided to focus on what he can control. He made a contingency plan for his business that detailed alternative ways to navigate the business during this pandemic and beyond. He started looking for alternative supplies, and he found out that there were many options. In fact, he realized that some of the old suppliers have been increasing the price of the goods, but now he was able to find the same products for much cheaper. After having found new suppliers, he then created a new and improved menu that contained their signature items as well as several new ones. He decided to rent the empty lot beside his bar, and he transformed it into a beautiful garden setup for outdoor dining, making sure that social distancing guidelines were followed. Now there was more space for customers to enjoy outdoor dining safely. This increased their capacity and income. Meanwhile, he invested in their pickup and delivery system. Because many people were cooped up at home, he thought of bringing the bar experience to the people for them to enjoy in their own homes. His craft beers and cocktails, as well as delectable appetizers and meals, were now available for delivery. As for his personal life, he made efforts to make things better. First of all, he reached out to his ex-wife, apologized for his past transgressions, and discussed ways they could work together to support their child whilst living separately. Instead of just leaving him missed calls, which is what he used to do, he found out what his son was interested in, and then he sent him a message that he would help him to achieve that goal. He also asked his ex-wife to talk with their son on his behalf and ensure that he knew George had the best intentions. After George started to focus on things in his circle of influence, his life started to change for the better. The business was going well, having adapted to the new situation. Their customers loved how the bar was able to come up with innovative solutions, creative ideas, and wonderful initiatives amidst the pandemic. By investing his time and energy in things that he can control and accepting things that he can't, George was able to make progress in reaching his goals in life. Even though the pandemic wasn't over yet, George was making progress as he focused on his circle of influence while doing things step by step. One day, George received a phone call that he didn't expect. It was his son. They had an amazing conversation, and George promised to help his son to achieve his goals in any way he could.